Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first panel discussion. We've got, from left to right, Eowyn the Forest Elf, who's hanging out to be our second host and moderator, along with her furry pet. You want to hold up your furry pet?
No, she went away.
Oh, no. Catherine Lake Hogan, who has no furry pets around. Hey, Catherine, with Canadian, yay. Jen Baldwin with Find My Past. Thomas MacEntee, who I don't even know what to say about you, Thomas.
Just better not talk about me.
Speechless all the time. Yeah. LaBrenda is supposed to be here shortly and is working on getting in. So when LaBrenda shows up, we'll try and get her in. So this is a panel discussion on the future of genealogy. And so we want to talk about things that are going to be happening now that may affect us in the future, but also the things that we see might happen in the future. It's really organic. Of course, if you've got any questions that you want to throw up for our panelists, please do so over to the right. And just to say hello to everybody, we've got people from all over coming in. Karen Lowe, hey, Julie Ricketts, Chicago way near you there, Thomas. Momo H, Donna Bauman's here. Hey, Donna. Nanette's here. We've got people jumping in from Florida, from Kentucky. So hopefully we've got things covered. Nobody from England yet, though. I haven't seen anybody from England in here. But Hillary is here from Wales. So first question on our questions today is how has the genealogy world changed in the last 5 or 10 years? So I'll take the first person that raises their hand, or if you just want to jump in, go ahead. Okay, Jen Baldwin. Tell me how
we all literally just went stone cold.
Yeah, we did. That's okay. I have no problems with that.
Yeah, I obviously as a representative and of a big company in genealogy, for me, the biggest change in genealogy over the last 5 to 10 years has been the digitization of historical records. And I'm not going to talk about DNA because that's another big one, but it's not my area. The availability of historical collections is far beyond anything we've ever seen across the history of mankind. And not only is access improving, but we're also creating historical records at a massive scale. So the amount of data that's coming out right now is just absolutely incredible. Even if we just take one example, right, the 1921 census of England and Wales, and you guys all know I was going to bring it up, 38 million names in one collection. We never would have had that 10 years ago.
Yeah. No, and even things that have been lost. So look at what has been done with the Irish records in the past year. Yeah. They've recreated the stuff that was burned earlier. Catherine Lake Hogan, what is your take on what we're going to see? What has happened in the genealogy world in the last 5 and 10 years that has really moved us on?
Oh, it's the demand for easy access to primary source records, like online. And that's only going to increase, like continue on. I think the pandemic really pushed that forward. It really pushed societies to get their collections digitized and online. And people now, it's convenient. You're working from home. So why not take 15 minutes, half an hour on a lunch break, from your home office to pop on to a site and, research for that little bit of time.
Wait. I have an exception to that, though, Catherine. Who can log in and do 5 to 10 minutes of genealogy work?
Well, you know that.
15 minutes.
Rabbit holes. Pretend that you're working in your home office while you research your ancestors for the afternoon.
Yeah.
And Mags, if you had a to-do list and you weren't just chasing.
That's right. I was going to say that. That's
what
the research plan is for.
Exactly. I have a webinar called 15 minutes in and out on a document. Touch it for 15 minutes only once, and you can do it.
I love your promotion there, Thomas. I'm saving you for last for this question. LaBrenda Garrett-Nelson, one of my favorite people from Lawrence, South Carolina, which I have very deep roots in, as well as Drew Smith, Catherine Borges. I almost said Catherine Lake Hogan. You're Canadian. Catherine Borges and Drew Smith. We all have roots to where LaBrenda's from. LaBrenda, the question right now that we're asking, we're so glad you got in here a bit late. How has genealogy world changed in the last 5 or 10 years? Just in your estimation.
Well, I'll tell you, I have a number of things I could talk about, but one of the developments that I am particularly pleased about is our discipline's recognition that we have an obligation to be more inclusive. We've seen that on the part of national organizations, on the part of the Board for Certification of Genealogists of the National Genealogical Society, that genealogy, no less than any other discipline, has kind of undergirded systemic discrimination in this country. And it behooves us to do something about it. And various organizations have taken steps to do that. I think that's a big change worthy of note.
That is a big change worthy of note. And Find My Past just recently came out with some really inclusive stuff. So huzzah on that, Jen.
One of the areas that I'm seeing that we're lacking is for people with different abilities. Absolutely. Like closed captioning for webinars, and for people with vision issues. That's an area that I think that we need to include in the inclusivity. And I know it's been an issue at in-person conferences and on webinars and things like that.
And Thomas MacEntee, I saved you for last for this question. Yeah. LaBrenda, were you done? I just want to make
sure. Thomas, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're all going to say COVID changed the world. It flipped it upside down. 50 years from now, historians are going to say that, like World War II. And it basically kicked us in the butt on certain things. Societies were resistant to webinars. Well, they had no choice. I taught 250 webinars last year. It practically killed me. And the thing is, and my business went up 300%. So I know people were sitting at home doing genealogy. And but no, I like the way it's expanded. I know when I came in the industry in 2010, I was a disruptor. I was social media. People wouldn't touch it. Webinars, people wouldn't touch it. And I like the way it's developed. I really do. And and LaBrenda, the inclusivity, that's really at a forefront right now for me to make sure. If you know me on my Facebook page, I usually post a historical event on my cover photo every day. And I try and seek out those historical events involving people of color that always get, I hate to say whitewashed, but they're buried. And so I want to bring them to the forefront. And I think we need to do that more and more.
And just to pop in to look, Jade still is saying that she's currently pretending to work whilst doing genealogy research. Hello from Cornwall, UK.
Yes.
And Julie Ricketts also brought up something really great about WikiTree, is that we have accessibility angels on WikiTree to try and help people with limited vision and hearing issues and other stuff. Lewis Kessler, we're so sorry that you're on webinar overload, but that's okay. So Thomas, take us into, how do you think things will look for us in 5 years? Don't go past that, because I'm not, but I don't want to get into it. I mentioned the topics. I really think artificial intelligence, we're going to see it more and more. It's driven things like at MyHeritage, the photo tools. We are seeing more and more stories put together, like by Ancestry and other platforms, that they take your facts and they put together a story. Interestingly enough, the U.S. Copyright Office this week denied a copyright for an artificial intelligence story that was written. It got through because a woman put her name down as the author. She used the AI software. And so they've said that it doesn't qualify for copyright. So the thing is also, when you search now, like on MyHeritage or Ancestry, you get suggested records. You're going to see this more and more, artificial intelligence. The one thing that I really like is blockchaining. Now, if you know what blockchaining is, it's the backbone of cryptocurrency. Basically, it keeps a public ledger of every transaction. I don't know why we can't use that for DNA. Take 23andMe, for instance. They had a $300 million investment from GlaxoSmithKline to use the metadata from 23andMe users to help develop drugs, etc. Well, if you look at the Henrietta Lacks story, it's the same situation. Why aren't we getting compensation for the use of our DNA? So if you had a blockchain, you could track not just from that, but also I'd like to know the researcher who's using my DNA data, and linking like that. So I think that's going to be a big thing. Digitization, like Jen said, I mean, it's rapid. Look at how quickly the 1950 census and the handwriting.
digitization.
technology
That blew
is
my
gonna be
mind.
big.
That absolutely blew my mind. Yeah, if it could only do German fraktur or German handwriting or Latin records, and this is one that I threw out there that a lot of people are not going to get NFTs, non-fungible tokens. If you know what that is, it's basically a digital image that you can create and sell using blockchaining tracking. So if I have a letter from my second great grandfather, why can't I digitize it, create an NFT, and track its usage? I could license it. I could sell it. A lot of firms are doing this with logos. So I know LaBrenda in law. I read a lot of law firm blogs for IP attorneys, and they're dealing with this whole concept of NFTs and how to tell their clients what they are and try and get in on the market. So I think we're going to see that as well. And then the inclusivity. The other thing with the inclusivity, though, is we've dealt well with the transgender issue, but we have far to go. I have a lot of transgender friends, and they have what's called a dead name. That's their birth name. And I don't know the dead name for most of my people. Let's talk about Bruce Jenner. Everyone knows his dead name because he was a public figure. But how do you document a transgender person when you don't want to use the dead name? You want to, privacy and everything. So that's opening a whole nother world. Pronouns also. I mean, we've made great advances in showing same-sex relationships, even with family search and all of that. That took a while. But now, how are we going to deal with pronouns as well? So those are the things, I think 5 things that I see. I don't know what you guys think.
Catherine Lake Hogan, you pop up next in my list here.
Okay, so I had to do a little bit of research on blockchain. And so if you don't know what it is, Thomas can correct me if I'm mistaken, but this is how I see it for those of you who don't know what it is. It's kind of like, on WikiTree, every change that you make on a profile gets documented,
Exactly.
Okay? And then, on Family Search, when Family Search does indexing of a record set, there's usually 2 people who are inputting that information. And then if there's a discrepancy with that information, a third person will look at it and make a final decision. It's kind of like WikiTree and Family Search mesh together, and all that information gets documented and the accuracy of it gets verified.
It's total transparency. It's total transparency. That's what I like about it.
Right. And so I can really see a demand for that because you look at Ancestry and those public family trees and the errors on there keep getting perpetuated. You take something like blockchain and say you implement it into something like WikiTree, and you can see all that, the changes, and you can see the verification. And I think the potential for that, for family history, for genealogy is like huge.
So
can I just ask in the genealogy context?
Yeah.
How does that work I can see that working for kind of low-hanging fruit where you're documenting facts or factual statements. How does it work where in the many cases, especially for people of color, where you need a proof argument? You're not just, is that susceptible to blockchaining as you guys describe it?
I could basically write an oral history story that's been passed down through the family. I would write it in fixed form. Maybe create a digital image and make an NFT out of it. That's how I would do it. Right now, I don't know. Right, Catherine? That's how I would do it. I don't know how you would blockchain a document per se, but I guess you could. There's nothing beyond that. I don't know. I'd have to do some research. I mean, would Adobe allow us to use PDF as a format for blockchaining, to do that as well?
I wanted to point out that WikiTree is way ahead of everybody else with our changes.
Oh yeah,
we're blockchaining things like crazy. Go ahead, Thomas.
So this reminds me, when I was in the information technology field, we always use something called change control. When you push out templates on a Tuesday, what if that push out didn't go well? You need to have a restore point. So you always track every little thing. And that's what the value could be. If someone really, I mean, there have been some just messes on Family Search, and I pull out what hair I have left, and I would love to see how that happens. So yeah.
Jen.
Yeah, there's been some interesting points raised. I'll throw in another, and I think in the next 5 years we're going to see big data as a huge component of genealogy and family history research, also referred to as data storytelling. But we have access to these massive pieces of information, this incredible collection of metadata. What's going to happen with that? How are those stories going to be told? What nuances from that historical lens are we going to be able to pull and add to our research? Something I'm actually quite interested in and working on myself today. And
you're pulling in the meta universe. Are we going to be walking into the Family History Center in the meta universe with our virtual? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, Jen, look at how the 1950 census was handled. NARA made the whole set available on Amazon web servers for anyone, public. I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Anybody listening here can download the entire collection of the census. That's incredible. Right? That's an enormous amount of data. Right. So we have access to all of these amazing sets, even just an index, right? If you look at the GRO index out of England and Wales, that is a substantial amount of history over the last 200 years. Yeah. What can we learn from that by looking at it in a very different way? The other point I'd like to raise about this, I think in the next 5 years, societies need more attention and love. Thomas is right. COVID flipped societies on their head, right? Yeah. And they had to change and adapt. And now I think a lot of them are trying to handle, like, do we go back in person? Do we do kind of this hybrid model? Societies are more important than ever, in my opinion. They've always been essential, but we know not everything is online, and we know that societies need to survive. And we as humans have just gone through this experience where we've learned that being separated from each other is really difficult. So we need to bring that community back together in some model.
And I love talking to you people like this, but I want to hug you all.
I know, exactly. Yeah.
Well, Brenda, I don't want to leave you left out. Did you have more that you wanted to add to this?
Well, to this question about the next 5 years, and I think Jen kind of touched on it. So we're going to get this massive amount of data, but there is and will continue to be a need for kind of widely accepted best practices and standards. And so I see that those standards continuing to evolve and to be refined. And if there is any bright side of COVID, it is that people have had to invest in the ability to have virtual presentations. And I think some societies are doing hybrid things now. No one is kind of, that ship has kind of passed. Is that what a ship does?
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Oh, go ahead.
But I just wanted to add to that the to me it means just the need for more education, and and we've already seen it with Thomas's 250 webinars last year. I think a lot more.
One thing that we haven't talked about for the 5 years is I think that the education level of our genealogy, the genealogists, the people who are working on genealogy, I think that the education is something that has always been ongoing. But I think that just in the past couple of years and moving forward, education is going to become even more important.
But I also think it needs to change. Right now, I think that the 50-minute lecture, 10-minute Q&A is kind of stale as a webinar. People want more actionable education. They want just-in-time training. They want small videos. And then they want like a flipped webinar where you do the work first and there's a reveal. That's why I have a genealogy escape room. You get 20 things you need to solve, you know, and I did one on Johnny Stompanato, who was Lana Turner's lover that was stabbed to death by Lana Turner's daughter out here in Woodstock, Illinois. And you take the death certificate and you break it apart. And the thing is, we're building skills. How many people attend a webinar, get the handout and file it away and never touch it again?
Right.
You know, so I think we need to look at different options.
You're kind of talking about kind of streamlining what happens at institutes where you do get hands-on instruction and the opportunity to put what you've learned to use.
Yeah, people crave that. They crave that. Yeah.
Yeah,
we all want to be locked in a room with Thomas at some point.
No, you don't. For sure. No, you don't.
One thing that I want to point out that came up in the comments as we were talking from Cliff Johnson, he says, talking about blockchain and NFTs without talking about their massive environmental impact is insanely irresponsible. Anybody want to make a comment or have a comeback for that?
What would be the environmental impact? I'm trying to understand.
Because you need servers.
You need massive amounts of energy to be able to run the data.
Well, we have that through Amazon Web Servers, and that's why everyone is using them for data.
You also need precious minerals to be able to create.
But that's anything digital. It doesn't apply just to blockchaining. It's that's the way the internet is. I mean, successful companies run on data. Google's successful because they run the numbers. I mean, that's how my business is. I run my numbers. I look at my numbers every quarter, every week, what I'm doing. I do think that we need to have better ways of running those, greener ways of running servers in that. But I don't see that it's
not an issue endemic to genealogy.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Worldwide.
So
it's
perhaps we don't add to it.
Okay. So moving on, 25 years out. Now, Thomas, I have to tell you that one of my best presentations that I do, you are one of the last slides in the presentation where I say that you in your Forbes magazine interview talked about the fact that we'd be able to walk down the street, walk past somebody, and our phone would vibrate and tell us that somebody matches our DNA right next to us.
Yeah.
So looking forward to 25 years, that's one of my favorite things to talk about when I talk about what's going to happen in the future. What do we see now? And Thomas, I'm not going to you first. I'm going to go to Jen first.
I think it comes back to aside the technology piece, because I agree, we're going to get that vibration on our phone or on our watch. I think the inclusivity piece is going to continue to grow and increase. And I think it's going to be much more prominent in all of English-speaking world's countries across the globe. I think it's going to be much more prominent in areas like South Africa, for example, and India, where the British Empire has had a pretty significant impact over time, and other areas of that kind of similar historical vein. It's not, though, just going to be historical records in different populations. It's also going to be ages. The expanse of people doing genealogy is going to grow. And we are going to see us as a community getting younger and younger and older as people's lives get longer. And so inclusivity, to me, means a whole lot of things. But I think in particular, those two areas in terms of who is doing genealogy and how and with what materials, that is just going to continue to expand.
LaBrenda.
Well, I think just harkening back to what I was saying earlier about education, at some point we need kind of more robust offerings at the college level. This needs to be, there's a lot of learning out there, and I think we've made great strides towards that, but we're not where we should be. And in 25 years, I hope that we are.
Yeah. Catherine.
I'm just
laughed again.
25 years down the road, my kids are in their late 40s, early 50s. So that's Gen Z that we're talking about. And yes, I'm Canadian, so it is Gen Z. Gen Z. But those younger millennials and those early Gen Zers are going to be what we're doing now. They're going to be that age group we're in now. So it kind of blows your mind. And echoing what LaBrenda said, I really do think there really needs to be more post-secondary availability in learning how to do genealogy at the college level, at the university level. How many universities in Canada and the United States offer genealogy as an undergraduate degree or a master's degree? Very few. And let's face it, genealogy, it is a legitimate profession. We all do it. The people here on this panel, we're all doing it professionally. It is a legitimate career option. It needs to be, I think, a little bit pushed out a little bit more in the forefront. And, hopefully that's something that'll happen. I mean, I would hate to, have it 25 years down, the road, 5 years down the road would be great. But hopefully those types of things, people can see that as a legitimate career option.
And Thomas, moving on to you, but really first I want to say that Gwen Sokolich says, how are research and mentoring services in their varying forms still relevant to genealogy societies? But think about that for your 25-year.
Okay. Well, for me, I think the one issue also is privacy, especially DNA and privacy. That's going to continue to be a big thing. And more stuff we do on the internet, the millennials, they're willing to trade off privacy for an added benefit or ease of use with some procedure, and they don't understand. My nieces and nephews, I keep saying, internet is a copy machine. That's it. You think you can pull something back, and you can't. So I think privacy, I've already seen a drop in DNA sales since the Golden State serial killer. I mean, it just dropped off. And I really think privacy is a concern. A lot of my clients that I take on for DNA, I set up a burn email address. We use certain ways to try and protect it. I don't care that they say metadata. You can still track it back. I think that you can still track it back on DNA. And like I said, that's where blockchaining comes in. I want to know who's using my DNA.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Yes.
So, but I think that's all I'm going to add to the 25
And that
years.
is a part of education and evolving standards. When I refer to standards, I refer to the ethics, our codes of ethics that we follow.
Right.
That goes to
Informed consent, using informed consent when you work with a client, because even though the dead they don't have the right to privacy. If you want to say, this is what I want to do with my DNA sample when I die, that's what your estate planning and informed consent forms are for, and work with an estate planning person, etc.
I think that's true here. Someone pointed out to me that in Canada, maybe the dead do have more rights.
They might do. Yeah, they might. Yeah.
That's great. And that kind of covered our question about the younger generations are so important to the future of genealogy. And I want to point out to Thomas, although DNA sales did take a hit after the Golden State Killer, they have soared back up.
They have, but right now I'm seeing with inflation and concerns, people they're being, they don't have a lot of discretionary income. And face it, it's not a vital product. And so I know MyHeritage just dropped their price to $39 for their DNA tests today. And so there are some deals, but I'm hoping that it goes back up, that people aren't afraid because of the privacy issues.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the younger generations are important to the future of genealogy. We just really covered that. Do you guys want to move on to the next question?
Sure.
Does anybody have something specific they had prepared for that question specifically? And Eowyn, if you have a comment or you want to jump in, just do, girl.
Thanks, Max.
Let's see. DNA has already impacted the world of genealogy beyond our imaginations. What will it look like going forward? How will it continue to change in the way we practice genealogy? Will there come a time when an accurate tree could be generated just from a DNA test? Oh, I see Thomas, go for it.
No, but also artifacts. Right now, what's developing is if you have a set of dentures from a grandparent that never took a DNA test, you could extract. That's one thing that's developing. It's very expensive right now. But also the problem is someone said, oh, I have an envelope from a great-great-grandfather. Well, you don't have a chain of evidence. You don't know who licked that envelope. It could have been his secretary, so there's that. But I think that DNA will continue. And again, that artificial intelligence, I love the tools that are out there. It can be overwhelming. It's not an easy thing to triangulate and et cetera. If there's a process that does that and is documented and does it accurately, I think so. But privacy.
So you're talking more automation to make the stuff that we're doing mathematically.
Right. There's never going to be an easy button. I don't want to take that away. The fun is problem solving and puzzles and genealogy. Come on, and there is no easy button in genealogy. There shouldn't be. But if there's something that can help us sort out, a name project, DNA name project on family tree DNA, and help it, besides the painter and this and that, there are tools all over the place.
There are. And I don't know who watched Amy Johnson Crow's first talk this morning. It was great. One of the things that she said in the Q&A was, and this is a general comment that I think is very spot on, DNA is disruptive.
Oh, yeah.
And it can be misleading if it is misinterpreted.
Right.
So what you're saying, Thomas, fits exactly. LaBrenda, what are your comments or thoughts on DNA?
Well, I think, one observation I would make is that I still talk to a lot of folk who are resistant to using DNA. And at some point, with a lot more education, it's going to have to be a part of everybody's toolbox. Right now, we have to distinguish between our conclusions about biological or genetic relationships and be very careful in how we describe the conclusions based on the records. And at some point, they have to come together. And the way you put it, DNA being disruptive is exactly right. I think a lot of previously confirmed relationships might get overturned once DNA is part of everybody's toolbox.
Yeah, to those conclusions. Catherine?
Yeah, I'm just going along with this. Some of this, the DNA stuff is a little. I'm not a scientist, so I find DNA overwhelming. It takes a lot of effort for me to understand DNA because I'm just not scientifically inclined. So some of those tools out there I just, yeah, I don't know how to use them properly. And if there's something that comes along technology wise that makes it easier, I'm all for it. And the comment about DNA being disruptive. Oh yeah, huge. Had some disruptions in my own family, as a matter of fact, because of DNA. So we really do need to be responsible.
Yes.
When it comes, and that has to continue going forward. And I'll echo.
And that's a part of the education, is to make sure that we understand our responsibility as the keeper or the sharer of those secrets. Go ahead, Catherine.
And then, like, echoing Thomas's comment about that younger generation, millennials, just giving away the vault, opening the vault to their privacy. That's something that this generation of genealogists really, need to, I guess, hammer home with that younger generation about informed consent. You don't have to give everything away. And privacy really does matter. It really, who's using your information? That's the big question. Always in the back of your mind should be, you've given your information to somebody, who's using it now,
and you should have an exit strategy. I always say, if you're uploading data, have an exit strategy. What if Ancestry said we're going out of business in 30 days? That is, I'm not starting a rumor, but the thing is, when you export your tree, it's a GEDCOM. It doesn't take the media. So the thing is, and you should always read the terms and conditions. Set up an alert for a privacy policy update. I know that Judy Russell and I, whenever Ancestry updated their privacy policy, I would do a red line comparison with the last one to see, because they don't always mention everything in the promo for it. And so.
And it's really in plain English.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah. Jim Baldwin, speaking of plain English, what is your take on this question?
Well, I'm kind of with Catherine. This isn't really my area of expertise. So I do find DNA overwhelming at times, but I also think that DNA is a disruptor should be on a t-shirt, because we should all buy that. Part of the disruption of DNA is the emotional impact that it has. And we haven't talked about that, but there is, especially for Americans and perhaps for Canadians, Catherine, you can keep me honest here, that it is that idea of trying to find out where I came from.
Right.
That's not an issue for people elsewhere in the world as much as it is for people in North America. So there's this emotional thing. I really desperately want to be Scottish or Irish, right? We can all talk about that famous commercial many years ago now. But if DNA shows something else, there is that disruption to not only what I personally want for my family history, but also for the larger family involved, right? And finding all of those.
Yeah, breaking down those family stories. I have that in my client agreement. My client agreement says it's not always going to be like a reunion on TV.
No.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Nope. Your results may vary. Your mileage may vary. But the thing is, that's the biggest thing emotionally, that's a disruptor to family stories and family legend.
It's
and what
also,
do you do?
It's disruptive on the research side, right? You take someone who's a very passionate enthusiast and does genealogy on a regular basis, and you see it over and over again on social media. How come no one responds to my messages? I have all of these matches, and this is so frustrating. Are we killing off the joy of genealogy by trying to incorporate all of this science?
We're going to get some. I'm going to make a T-shirt for you today and send it to you.
I will wear it with pride.
And as a promotion for tomorrow's panel, the discussion panel tomorrow is loaded with genetic genealogists. So tune in tomorrow at 12 to catch that. I also noticed that Daniel is here from Ireland, and Daniel is working on a project to try and help identify children in some of the Irish homes that were around at the time. And Maurice Gleason is somebody who's been spearheading the DNA side of that kind of thing. So it is very timely to some of the people that are across the pond, as it were. So LaBrenda, I'm going to put this one question to you first. What do you think of the major pay sites? Will they continue to absorb more and more databases like Pac-Man, the old game Pac-Man? Will genealogy become a hobby that needs a paid subscription? or will more things become free and easily accessible?
Well,
I wanna
think
go
it
last
already
on
is a hobby that requires a paid subscription. Although I prefer the term I first heard Jean Bloom use, casual genealogists already have to invest quite a lot to do this work well, or to even try to do this work well. And so I don't think that will change. But I think if the other panelists, if their predictions are right, that more and more people will be doing this, it should become less costly if economics is still a thing in this day and age. I don't know if it is.
So how many people are not honest with their partner or spouse about how much they spend on genealogy? I have a special credit card my husband doesn't know about.
Yeah, I don't have. Yeah, no.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
honey, I spend $200 a year on subscriptions, and I'm thinking poll-free newspapers, Ancestry, Find My Past, you know? So,
Yeah. I funnel all that stuff through the business, so I don't have
Sure.
to share it.
no, the one thing that I'm pushing is I would love to see a loyalty program from the major vendors. If
Yes.
I'm buying a DNA test from Ancestry, let me earn points that I can put towards a renewal. Right now, a lot of the offers are new members. So, and that's the biggest complaint I get. I've been on Ancestry. Well, it says I'm a member since 1899. I think that's a mistake. but the thing is, I've been with them for over 20 years. But if I'm not catching it and I don't cancel in time and pick up a special, then I'm dinged for the full price. Why not? If I'm buying your products, your other products, why can't I get a credit? Just like airlines, points,
but
miles.
loyalty programs, Thomas, it's really annoying when you have to pay anything for full 3 when you're already on Ancestry. Yes, they give you a discount, but
Exactly. Well, that's that whole idea. You wind up comparing apples to oranges because it's a bundle. I hate bundles. Progressive insurance bundles, I don't care. I hate bundles. AT&T bundles. Bundles to me are a ripoff because it's a shell game, and it's hard to compare, And we just saved $150 a month with AT&T because we figured these bundles are not working for us. So, but yeah, I really am an advocate of these loyalty programs.
Find
I
My
think
Past
we
has
need
a
to see
loyalty
that.
discount. Just saying.
What's that? They do.
Yeah, we do.
Oh,
yeah.
I did not. Can you expand upon that?
I can't. I will as a customer. I can as a customer because I've just actually renewed with Find My Past, and because I have been a loyal customer with them, and I cannot do my UK genealogy without Find My Past. I can't. They have rewarded me, and I think I got a 20% discount
20%.
when I renewed. And so I'm like, yes, thank you so much, Find My Past. I'm going to keep going with you. And it's nice to be rewarded as a loyal customer. And I've been with them from the beginning. So it's nice to have that.
And I have to say that there have been no paid, there's no money in this.
No sponsorship. That's just my own opinion. And I'll validate that's my own opinion and my own personal experience with that company.
So on the long run, LaBrenda, were you done?
Well, no, I think the flow of the conversation is fine. I didn't have much to add to that.
No, good. Catherine, was that your commentary on this in general, or do you want to address other companies?
I would like to see other companies, big companies, offer something to the people. I mean, I'm the same boat as Thomas. I've been with Ancestry for years and years and years. Never, ever, have I been, rewarded for being a loyal customer. And I have canceled and have, I've gone without it for a while and get enticed back, But why do I have to quit? Why do I
have to go through all these hurdles? It's all these hurdles.
Right?
You shouldn't have to go through it. You need to mark on your calendar when your renewal is. You need to cancel. Then you go into the marketing bucket for a former subscriber. And after 90 days, you go into the new subscriber. I mean, it's a mess.
I have to say that there is an Ancestry employee in this chat right now. So we're hoping that person, I'm not even going to use a pronoun. I hope that person can relay our commentary back to them. Jen, hit us.
I mean, let's go back to the original question, right? What's the future of major pay sites? Are we always going to have to pay for genealogy? Well, we've always had to pay for genealogy.
That's right.
There's never been a point when genealogy has been free. And I would point to, and I know you're going to be shocked at this, an example in the 1921 census from England. There are 2 American genealogists in the census that are staying in London 100 years ago, and they are there to do research at the General Record Office, which is now the National Archives. They had to pay for that trip. It wasn't free. They had to pay for the hotel and the food and the
Right.
voyage and everything else. It's never been free.
No.
Is it expensive? Yes, it is.
Well, and that thought occurred to me too, Jen, that we're not doing the traveling we've been doing.
That's
we were
right.
doing before the
Yeah.
pandemic.
Yep.
As more stuff comes online, we'll do less travel.
We'll do less traveling. Right. I think about, I do a lot of research, obviously in the UK, but I also do a lot in New York, and I live in Colorado. So what's the cost for me to travel to New York and do that research, or even hire someone to do it for me because it's not online?
Right.
If you look at something like the 1921 census, it's a big project, right? It's the biggest thing Find My Past has done this year for sure. There were 38 million names brought online for the first time. It took us over 4 years. There were hundreds of employees involved. We put a £7 million investment into that census collection. How do you do that without a corporate entity behind it? I can't think of a business model that makes that successful. So of course we have to charge to gain back what we invested in the first place, right? £7 million is a lot of money. Even in, I don't care what kind of economic status you're in, right? That's a huge investment for the business. So there is a lot that goes into that. It's not just the digitization of the records. It's not that simple. The census was still under privacy laws when we started digitization. So we had to set up a secure room in a different building in a different part of the country. We had to hire special staff. They had to go through a security clearance, a background check to be hired. Then the collection had to actually be conserved. Every page had conservation treatment applied to it. Then it gets scanned. Then it gets indexed. But when you're setting up that office, you're thinking about tables, chairs, computers, pencils. We had to buy everything in order
the other thing you're kind of pointing out, Jen, is that genealogy is a discipline worthy of respect. It's its own discipline. All of the
absolutely
of any other endeavor.
Yeah. So we have the subscription model today, but every site also offers opportunities to work through that, right? Find My Past offers millions of records for free. We have 2 million newspaper pages available for free. Anybody, you sign up for a free account, you can use those newspapers. Other sites obviously do similar things. There are discounts available. There are library access subscriptions available. If your library doesn't have the website that you want, go to the administrators and ask for it.
And that was a lifesaver during COVID. Here in Chicago, I could go onto the CPL website and get Ancestry at home.
Yeah.
So, and that was a lifesaver during COVID. It really was.
Yeah. Libraries tend to add what their patrons want, right? And these kinds of services do come at a cost, of course, for that library. So the more complaints or the more requests they get from their patrons, the more likely they are to carry the subscription you're looking for.
I don't expect Family Search to go away.
No, not at all.
As accessible, but there are loads of records that are not on Ancestry.
Here's one thing I want to put out there. Do you think that Ancestry might sell off its data business and split it from DNA?
Oh, that's an interesting point. And boy, you are trying to hit the hornet's nest, aren't you there?
No, I've thought about it. I thought about it as a business model.
Honestly, I won't speak to it too much because it's a competitor, obviously, but and I don't want to put myself in that place. But I think anything is possible in this business.
Right.
And I think that particularly investment companies are starting to realize how much of a big business this is from a financial perspective. We see that with the purchases of Ancestry and MyHeritage and their various domains across France and all the things that they've done recently. There is a lot of money flowing around and there's a lot of opportunity. This is a market that is only growing. And I think that there is potential for just about anything to happen.
This is not your grandmother's genealogy.
That's right.
What I say.
And here we are having a panel discussion about this on WikiTree, which is a site that is all about things being available and free and accessible. Chris Whitten actually commented, what we research can be free to others.
Absolutely.
And that is a very good point. Also, if you want to know more about WikiTree and its promise to stay open and accessible moving into the future, join us tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. I will be interviewing Chris Whitten, and that's one of the questions that we're going to talk about. That's one of the things we're going to talk about. So another promo thrown in there.
I think it's absolutely essential, Mags, that we have both.
Yes.
We have to have the opportunity for a WikiTree environment to be successful and for Family Search and their records to continue to do what they do. But we also definitely need the corporate investment into some of these records that are, we're looking at expanding the collection for World War II, right? You're going to see a lot of World War II content coming online in the next few years as that starts to open up. That is a lot of records that is going to be an expensive project, no matter what it is, and no matter what company does it and where that originates. So there is a place for this corporate world.
So yeah, the thing I see though for the corporate world is just making these records more accessible,
right?
So that you don't have to look through a minute book on Family Search every single page because it's not been indexed, even though it has valuable information.
Eowyn, what were you going to say?
No, I was just saying that going forward, it's all about trying to find that balance between the corporate and the free.
Yeah.
And I want to point out, we're all professional genealogists in this panel right now. All of us are professional genealogists. And having a good business model, and Thomas can attest to this, you have to give back to your community in order for your business to thrive.
So one thing I've been doing when I go to an archive or library and I transcribe a letter, I always send the digital copy to the staff saying, thank you for letting me access this record. Here is a digitized, because they have not, typed it up as a transcription. And that way other researchers have it. It's simple as that.
And do the librarians get back to you and say, yeah, we added this? Good.
Yeah, they say, yeah, thank you so much. And, I do it all the time.
I think there's a lot more of that happening, actually. We work really closely with the
Citizen Archivist.
Absolutely. We work really closely with the British Library, and we're doing some materials on their Caribbean collection and some World War I materials. And they have a light index, as they refer to it. And we're doing a little bit more work adding to it and then sending a copy back and letting them publish that. It has to be from the heritage sector, but also from the corporate sector.
But Mags, my abundance model. My mother taught me that you can't hold on to what you have with a tight fist. You have to have your hand open to accept the next good thing coming your way.
Right.
And that's how I run my business.
Yeah. And this all leads into the last big question. And this is a really interesting question. And like I said, we're going to be talking about it in the morning with Chris Whitten, what his vision is for the future of WikiTree. But what do you think will remain of our digital footprint in 100 years? Will our descendants learn about us from our social media? When you think about how we feel when we find pictures of our ancestors, what will they feel when they see our selfies at meals and restaurants? Thomas, don't even put any more pictures up. What will we all be talking about in genealogy then in 100 years? Our digital footprint in 100 years.
My biggest fear is the digital dark ages. It's so easy to lose this digital data. I mean, that's why I press the 3-2-1 backup model. Also, I want to know who has been writing down their own experiences with COVID over the past 2 years. Are you documenting your life? I am. Yeah. And I think the biggest challenge is Lisa Alzo did a great week-long course with British Institute on family history writing. We keep kicking that can down the road. I have to finish my research to write something. No, you don't. Think of modulars. Do an ancestor sketch. Do a mini book. Then you string mini books together, and you've got a big book. But I think we need more and more of that as well. And we need to document.
And that is my focus, which is why, and I particularly I've published a few peer-reviewed articles, but on my family and one on my husband's family, with that in mind. Yeah. Not only documenting it, but doing it in a way that people can pick up 50 years from now and say, somebody looked at this and this is probably true.
Right. Well, we know the gamification of genealogy. We know that's in the industry. But the thing is, I'm leaving a legacy. This is not a game for me. I'm not playing here. I am leaving the legacy, even though I don't even have kids or descendants. I've got 41 first cousins on my mother's side. I do this for them and for their kids. I mean, otherwise, why are we doing this? Mm-hmm. I know it's an existential question about genealogy.
Well, Catherine, what do you think our digital footprint will look like in 100 years?
Well, it's going to depend. I mean, you take a country, and I hope I'm correct, and if my memory is correct, but you take a country like Germany, and where a person who's in their state center is make it so like they never existed, like everything about them gets eliminated. So how what do you do with something like that? There's
a lot of. You're saying that there could be some sort of political play in not allowing this digital footprint to move forward.
Could be because every country, well, state, province, whatever, has different laws with regards to privacy. What that could change over time. I think LaBrenda mentioned something about, in Canada, the privacy laws are different for the dead. Yes. In the province I live in, Ontario, it's 20 years before you can access some things. But, to access a death registration from someone who's recently deceased, it's 20 years, before you get like the cause of death on the death registration. Things like that, are protected even though the person is deceased. Going forward, where's all of this digital information going to be stored? How are people going to access that information 50, 100 years from now? We have the Wayback Machine.
Will there be so much stuff that
right?
We won't even know how to find it?
You won't even know how to access it. There's right. all of that. I mean, really, you can't, if you want something passed down to your family, you can't beat a book. Hard right. copy paper, right. Acid-free paper lasts a long time.
Well, also, cleaning up family history has been, remember gazetteers? Your ancestor could take out and pay for a really spiffy biography. My biggest fear right now is artificial intelligence. What if people can deep fake videos and photos of their ancestors?
That's in our next question. That's the final question. So,
okay.
Jen.
So I think, we started this discussion with talking about this opportunity around big data and all of this documentation that we're creating today. We're creating more records today than we ever have before. So I think there is going to be a storage problem. I think there's going to be a capacity issue. But I also think, going back to the question that was asked, what will our descendants learn about us from social media? Well, they're only going to learn what we want them to learn. So they're still going to have to do genealogical research to understand what our actual life was like, right? I mean, how many people do you know that go on Facebook and just tell the happy stories and don't talk about life and the turmoil and the daily stressors? So the documentation process of a human hasn't really changed. We have a lot more pictures of ourselves, but we only share the ones that are good, right? I mean, how many selfies do you take before you get just the right lighting and just the right smile, and right before you're actually ready to post that? Then what happens when when Facebook dies? And it goes away, and Twitter and Instagram and all of, and whatever, because there will be something after Facebook and there will be something after Twitter.
And Facebook is the backbone of the genealogy community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as a community, from a social perspective, virtual social perspective, where do we go next?
So AI is the very last question. And Marion said, no, not the final question. Don't worry, there's another panel tomorrow.
Come back tomorrow.
Yeah. 12 o'clock tomorrow. So should let's have a vote. Should we let Thomas start off the AI question?
Yes.
Well, basically AI, I think it's a double-edged sword. There are pluses and minuses, just like everything. But the thing is, my main concern is when MyHeritage came out with certain photo tools, they won't let you do them on living people. And the concern when they started doing that motion on images, it freaked me out. With me, what if my relative was my predator for sexual abuse? Would I want to see that person moving? And so I was devil's advocate when they were developing this concept. I mean, the thing is that it really changes it, but people could whitewash and clean up their, so I think Jennifer Mendelsohn, she goes out and she looks for politicians that complain about chain migration, and she has the receipts. She does the research. She says, yeah, your grandfather bought, and so, but yeah, I'm afraid with AI could help distort a lot of this stuff. So
talk about getting the perfect picture, the perfect angle.
Exactly. Right. I mean, the other day my husband said I have a face that launched 1,000 ships the other way, but so yeah. But still, I'm saying that is part of the technology. It's part of that. It has a dark side.
Can I just say though, and this is true about DNA too, because someone touched on this earlier. This is not a new thing. The potential for fraud and for just fooling some of the people.
Gustav on Jew.
I mean, it took how many decades before people figured out he was a fraud? And the same thing with DNA. It is a disruptor, but there are lots of people born before their parents were married. Exactly, get recorded, and so it's not. This isn't. I just That's all I want to say, really. This isn't unique to genealogy. It's something that we'll have to deal with, but
in general. Catherine Lake Hogan, we'll end up with Jen. The question is, follow up, we can colorize and animate photos now, among other things. What sort of AI type technologies might be available to aggregate our life stories?
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I mean, there are some out there. I've seen them, but I don't know. I'm not, my husband's a technologically savvy guy. I'm not. So when I don't understand things, I ask him. But there will be things like that. We can just even see things like, take something like photo preservation companies, right? They're expanding on what they're preserving. So it used to be just you could upload your photos, and now you can upload your videos, and they're going to preserve them. And, you know, and it's supposed to be guaranteed for 100 years. That type of thing. Because, you know, every time when I start researching somebody and I think, okay, who has forgotten this person? You know, obviously they've been forgotten, but today they're being remembered because I'm working on them. You know, that's what we all hope for, is that somebody down the line, you know, is going to, you know, do research on us and remember us. And then they're going to pay it forward by posting that information on the latest and greatest, whatever that's going to be. I mean, we can't even fathom what that could possibly be, you know? So I'm working on an ancestor relative from 200 years ago. They've been dead that long. Everybody's forgotten about them, but I've revived them because I posted about them on, you know, I put a profile on them on WikiTree, and then I put that WikiTree profile and I posted that on my Facebook, and I posted on my Instagram. You know, it's that perpetuation. Will continue.
And there's a guy on the Ontario Ancestors Board who actually created a way to recreate the village that your ancestor lived in. You can like walk through the village and stuff.
Right. So, you know, things like that. I mean, you do the flip side of that. You know, what would our ancestors think about the technology we have access to today that have documented their lives?
Jen, wrap us up.
AI is everywhere already, and it's only going to get more exciting, right? In the Find My Past app, you can take a picture of a headstone and it will transcribe the words for you and the dates and put it into your tree. You can scan a picture of a photograph that has multiple people in it, and it will identify each of those people, and you can say, that's Mary, that's John, that's Joe, and it will attach it to their tree. Handwriting is going to be a big one. For sure. Handwriting analysis and transcription. Newspapers are going to be big in the AI world in the next few years, for sure. Newspaper content is a massive opportunity for the AI environment. I think, honestly, AI is going to go everywhere. It's going to go way beyond photographs and the colorization and the animation of heads, and it's going to assist us in a very serious and academic way in our research.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here on behalf of WikiTree. This was so much fun. We'll continue tomorrow in the panel at 12 o'clock. Now.
It's at 9, Max.
It's at 9? Okay.
9
sorry.
Eastern? Okay.
I don't know what time it is.
I don't know what day it is. I'm so hooked on phonics. So.
Right now, Maureen Taylor is doing photo clues that reveal, and Helen Shields is doing Tell Me About One Place Studies. And there will also be a panel discussion about DNA and adoption if you'd like to join those. Yeah. There's also a Florian Straub presentation on WikiTree, the family tree in Deutsche, in German. So
I'm doing Internet Archive later this afternoon at 3 o'clock Eastern. Internet Archive, how to use it for genealogy.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, great seeing you all.
Yeah, same here.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.